Hey guys, alright? Welcome to our channel. We begin by seeing a group of 5 young friends preparing for an adventure, which involves hiking trails and then climbing mountains in Croatia. The group of friends consists of a couple named Fred and Corinne, a nurse named Chloe, and her boyfriend Loic, and finally an old friend named Guillaume, who is Chloe's ex-boyfriend, which Loic is not happy about. Fred gives directions using the map, stating that they will pass through dangerous locations. They then take a photo to capture the moment, and Guillaume insists on standing next to Chloe. Moments later on the road, Guillaume flirts with Chloe via cell phone, but she doesn't respond as they are in an area with no signal, far from civilization. On the way, the group gets excited about a song that connects them to previous outings, but Loic doesn't show the same enthusiasm due to Guillaume's presence. On the trail, Loic goes ahead with Fred, while Guillaume talks to Chloe and expresses his happiness at seeing her again. Further ahead, the group realizes that the mountain is blocked, and the usual passage is not open this time. However, Fred decides to improvise so they don't miss out on the trip and suggests the idea of climbing anyway, using his greater experience. Despite Loic not thinking it's a good idea, Fred continues and further ahead, he secures the anchor points for the others. Guillaume goes next, followed by Chloe. Loic is a bit insecure but also manages to climb, albeit with difficulties. Guillaume, aware of one of Chloe's patients, expresses his condolences and tries to comfort her. She has memories of that day and feels guilty about the boy's death. After everyone has passed, Fred instructs them on how to connect to the steel cables, and they embark on their adventure. They follow a trail along the edge of a cliff, hanging from a steel cable and secured by 2 safety belts. They all follow Fred along the dangerous path, with Loic being the only one who was afraid during the climb, but Chloe encourages him to keep going. As the group continues to climb, Loic realizes that the trail is not as easy as he thought. Further ahead, the group arrives at a bridge that looks fragile and dangerous. Fred goes first and jokingly says that once they cross the bridge, there's no turning back. Little did he know that those words would be so true. He excitedly crosses the bridge. Guillaume and Chloe follow, and when it's Loic's turn, as he reaches the middle of the crossing, he becomes very nervous and starts feeling sick. Seeing her boyfriend afraid, Chloe turns back and encourages him to keep going. Corinne, wanting to help, starts to climb on the bridge, but Fred asks her to stay still since the bridge is old and may not support too much weight. Moments later, Loic manages to reach the other side, but as the bridge is old, it starts to detach. Corinne is still in the middle of the crossing when the bridge begins to sway and come apart. Fred tells her to stop for a moment, but seeing that the bridge is about to collapse, Chloe urges her to run. The crossing becomes difficult, and the steps collapse, leaving Corinne hanging in the air, clinging only to the steel cable. She becomes very scared, and quickly Fred throws a rope to her, which thankfully they use to pull her up before the cables come loose. After everyone is safe, in the heat of the moment, Loic blames Guillaume for supporting the decision to go on this climb despite everything pointing to not doing it and accuses him of planning it. But Fred calms him down and says that everything will be fine and they need to move forward until they reach a zipline to get away. They continue the climb along a precipice, and although the view is incredible, the risk makes them fearful. Further ahead, Corinne, who is leading the group, notices that one of the support cables is loose. With no other choice, Fred and Corinne climb alone while Loic is filled with fear, and Guillaume and Chloe try to calm him down. Fred and Corinne manage to reach the top and then continue to go around and help the others. However, he tells Corinne that he knew the passage was blocked but still decided to come and apologizes for it. He continues on the trail but gets caught in a bear trap and is severely injured. Meanwhile, Loic slips and hangs on the cable with a high risk of a fatal fall, and due to his weight, he ends up pulling William as well. Meanwhile, Fred, who is severely injured, asks Corinne to continue alone and seek help from one of their friends, who are actually in a much more dangerous situation, hanging at that deadly height. Fortunately, Corinne arrives and throws the rope to them, and moments later, the 4 of them manage to climb up safely. Meanwhile, Fred looks around and becomes worried because night is approaching, and he also hears a noise nearby. Fred calls for his friends, but no one appears. Suddenly, a chain attached to the bear trap is pulled, and he is dragged into the woods, screaming in pain. Moments later, his friends arrive at the scene but cannot find him. However, they notice that the bear trap is there, and he couldn't have escaped on his own. They shout for him, but hear nothing. Unfortunately, the distress signal device is in Fred's bag, and there's no way to send a distress signal. Loic wants to leave, but Chloe says they will only leave when they find Fred. They arrive at another trail, and further ahead, William and Loic argue because of Chloe's past relationship with William, and they start fighting. Chloe tries to go to them to stop them but falls into a hole. Corinne decides to go after her friend and almost gets impaled by a stake while sliding. She continues descending and realizes that the place is a trap, where Chloe surprisingly is still alive but has been injured in her arm by a stake. Meanwhile, outside the hole, William senses something is wrong and calls out for Loic, thinking someone is nearby. Corinne manages to rescue her friend from that place, and once outside, they question the presence of traps there and who could have set them, becoming very apprehensive about it. Then we see Fred being dragged, appearing to be dead. Night falls, and the friends continue their search but are completely lost. Corinne begins to lament, thinking she will never find her boyfriend again, but Chloe calms her down. Then they tie a rope between them in case they fall into another hole again and continue the search. Not long after, with everyone shouting for Fred, Corinne is hit by an arrow in the chest and realizes that her rope has been cut. She tries to scream but can't. Chloe sees her friend and rushes to help, but Corinne is dragged away into the darkness of the forest. They try to go after her but can't find her. However, they find some sort of bow and arrow in the middle of the bush. Moments later, after the rain, the group continues their journey and comes across a house. They decide to enter due to the intense cold they were suffering from. When they enter, they find something terrible, Fred on a table, who appears to be alive but soon dies. Seeing that, Chloe is shocked and embraces William, lamenting, which doesn't make Loic very happy. When they decide to leave, William goes ahead to search Fred's backpack for some much-needed equipment. He ends up finding a basement and decides to go down. Down there, he finds a messy place with macabre things. He also finds a place where Anton is written in chains, indicating that it is a captivity. William finds the backpack but is startled to see some heads hanging from a rope and quickly leaves the place. Loic stops him and, blinded by jealousy, takes the bag and then pushes him back into the basement, locking him inside. When Loic tries to leave with Chloe, they come face to face with a madman who arrives with Corinne. He knocks them down and attacks Loic frantically, leaving him terrified, and then takes Chloe. In a state of fear and desperation, Loic leaves with a distress signal, leaving his girlfriend behind. Moments later, Chloe wakes up and realizes she is trapped next to William. They notice that the deranged man is in the house and try to remain silent. We see that he is some kind of cannibal and is about to harm Fred. Chloe and William try to free themselves, but moments later, the madman descends to the basement and takes Chloe with him, leaving William desperate and unable to do anything for the girl he cares about. Meanwhile, in the forest, Loic stops for a moment and laments leaving his friends behind. Back at the house, after much effort, William manages to free himself, but the basement is locked. He sees the deranged person heading towards Chloe to kill her as well and tries to desperately escape without success. Fortunately for them, a glimmer of hope arrives. It's Loic, who throws a stone at the cannibal, infuriating him and diverting his attention away from the house. Chloe manages to free herself and then frees William, who happily embraces her. They find Corinne's body, and Chloe cries deeply for her dear friend. The day has already dawned, and Loic continues to flee through the forest, heading towards the zipline. William and Chloe search for their friend, while the savage man hits Loic in the leg. He walks a bit further and reaches the zipline, but the madman arrives and attacks him. They fight furiously, and Loic manages to injure him with an arrow and then hits him with a stone. Loic tries to escape via a suspended ladder but ends up in danger again because the ladder is not secure. The madman moves away as William and Chloe find Loic and try to help him climb up. However, when Loic is holding William's hand, William remembers what Loic did to him earlier. So, telling Chloe that Loic is slipping, he lets him go, and Loic falls to a terrible death. Then he embraces Chloe, comforting her, but soon his turn comes, as he is surprised from behind, and the madman hits him with an arrow in the head. That is the final straw for Chloe, who, furious that all her beloved friends have died, faces the madman with a knife. She tries to strike him but fails, engaging in a fight for her life. However, he is very strong and savage, and when he is about to finish her off with multiple punches, Chloe shouts his name, Anton, as William had mentioned seeing it written on the walls of the basement. In a moment of mild madness, he reflects for a bit, and with this opportunity, Chloe slits his throat. She moves to finish him off but hesitates due to her trauma of losing a patient during her shift at the hospital and chooses to leave him writhing in pain. She then leaves and takes the zipline. The movie ends by showing us that as she descends, the madman manages to stand up and grab the knife. Then we can only hear the sound of the zipline cable snapping, indicating that Chloe has fallen. A note at the end tells us that days later, Loic's body was found, but the bodies of his other friends were never found. This also indicates that Anton survived and continues his cycle of madness and atrocities out there.